Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session of the International Coaches Summit brought to you by the Basketball Embassy. Got another great speaker lined up for you today. We have James Veer, who is the head coach of Barking Abbey Basketball Academy. Today, he's going to be talking about flow motion and spread motion counters. And so, Coach, we're so excited to have you today and to listen to your session. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us. And if you guys have any questions, Coach has some time at the end of this presentation. So go ahead and drop those questions in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and we'll ask those questions at the end. So Coach, thanks so much. Floor is yours.
That's great, thanks. I'm just gonna share my screen right here, so bear with me. Just checking that you can see that, yeah?
Yep, it looks good.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, just want to say, first of all, thank you to Coaches Embassy and to Layson for having me back on again. This is the third time I've been on now, so hopefully getting the hang of it a little bit. And today I'm going to be talking about flow and spread motion actions and counters. So the first couple of talks I did, the first one was on flow motion specifically and how, we teach flow motion kind of from the ground upwards. We talked about, the key concepts that we use when we first input the offense and some things that we kind of stress throughout the academy. And then on the second one, I spoke about spread motion, which is kind of a hybrid of flow. It's more four guards around one post player, and we've kind of run with that over the last couple of years. And the reason for that is, trends in the game. A lot of teams are running four guards around one post. So, one thing with flow and spread for us is that the concepts remain exactly the same. So it gives us the flexibility to be able to run both motion offenses in the same game, which we find is really beneficial for us. So like if you are interested and you haven't seen the first two clinics, I implore you to go and watch them, especially if you are a fan of motion offenses. We believe at our academy that it's a great offense for youth development. And I think that, we've been able to develop our players really well through both of these motion offenses over the years. So just some keys to think about when we're thinking about actions within flow motion and spread motion. So what I'm going to be talking about today is kind of getting into the kind of X's and O's of the actual offense and the actual actions that we run through spread and through flow. So, one thing for us that's really important is that our key concepts always remain the same. So whatever actions we put in, we want our key concepts to remain exactly the same. So, we want to play really fast. We want to play with pace and space, which is something we speak about our players daily. We want to still play with that 1 second rule mentality. When I say 1 second rule, I'm sure you've heard that in plenty of other talks as well. When you catch it, you want to be ready to shoot it. You want to be able to make an extra pass or to dribble. We want to make our decisions quickly. And we also want the ball to move quickly as well. We want to play unselfish. So any concept or any, action that we put in, we make sure that our concepts still remain exactly the same. We also try and make sure that our actions, can link together with both sides of the floor. So we think about what actions that we are running, and we want to make sure that our two-man game actions link with our three-man game actions and vice versa. And that's important to what we're doing as well. One thing we try and do as much as possible, which is really hard with what's going on at the moment, is we experiment a lot in our off season. So we try and, we'll see a lot of actions throughout the year, whether it's watching other teams in Europe or in the States and all over the world, really. Us as our coaching staff, we often come up with new three-man game and two-man game actions, and we'll often look to see if we can experiment with them in the off season and pre-season. We don't actually have the option to do that at the moment, obviously, because we have no off season. But it's a good time to be able to try and experiment with some stuff to see if it works or to see if you actually like it. We also ask our players as well what actions they like best, especially our senior guys. If we put something in new, we're often ask their opinion on it. I think it's important that you do get your players' opinions on stuff as well. We do that a lot with a lot of stuff that we do within our academy as well. Another thing that's really important is to ask yourself, what kind of team are you? I think that's really important because, you know, for us at the academy, and I know it works differently at different academies in different countries, but for us, we get our kids for only 2 years. So each year we're having a group move out and a new group move in. So our team is constantly changing year on year, whether it's, you know, are we front court orientated or are we back court orientated? Do we want to have more actions that, you know, where we can get the ball to the post a lot more? Do we want actions that give our opportunities to backcourt players to be able to create? So you need to ask, for us, we need to ask ourselves, and this is something we're currently doing at the moment as a staff, is asking ourselves, you know, what are we going to be next year? What are we going to look like? Something that we do, and this is, you know, it can be different team on team, is, you know, when we get our first year players in, we will script the actions that they can run. So if we're in a 2-man game action, and I'll get into what a 2-man game, a 3-man game action is in a minute, but we script these actions for our first year players. And the reason that we do that is when we get our guys in, we get them at 16 years old. And, you know, when they come in, they've usually only played at a club team that only trains twice a week. So for coming to our environment, you know, where we train every single day, and when pre-season starts, we often go 2-a-days. What we don't want to happen is we don't want to overload them with too much stuff, because, you know, we want to get a balance for our first years where they're playing really hard, but they're also concentrating just on a couple of things in these actions. And we found if you give them too much, you know, the effort level goes down, or we're just overloading them. So we try and make sure we try and get a balance with our first year guys. Our second year and third year guys, you know, we've scripted stuff for them in the past. And we, you know, we'll say maybe you can run 3 actions in a 3-man game or 3 actions in a 2-man game. We're thinking of going away from that now at the moment. We're thinking of actually not scripting anything for them for our second and third year guys. And one reason for that is I watched a clinic, and if you're a motion offense coach and you really love motion offense, I implore you to watch some clinics by a coach called Brian Lynch, who coaches in Belgium. And he runs an offense called the open offense. And the open offense is very, very similar to spread and flow motion, but all of his stuff is non-scripted. So he makes the players find solutions to problems. And he showed through a lot of video that, you know, players came up with solutions and actually came up with actions all by themselves. So that's something that we're going to experiment a little bit with, especially with some of our older guys. You know, I sometimes don't give our guys enough credit with how high of a basketball IQ some of them have. So I feel like, you know, next year we're going to experiment a little bit with maybe not scripting some of the actions, or nearly all of the actions. And the last point I just wanted to make was, you know, the one thing that we try to do is we try to have offensive terminology when we start off our season. So all of our actions actually have terminology. They're usually one word, you know, terminology. So it might be, you know, push, it might be away. We have one called deny, you know, so, you know, it's very easy for our players to be able to learn the action through just, you know, just one single word. It's easy, you know, for our point guards to be able to huddle guys up and say, you know, we're going to be in away in the next action. So we also, we want to be a good offensive communicating team as well. I think that teams often talk a lot about defensive communication and how great teams, defensive teams have to communicate. I find that I think you need to be a great, you know, communicating team on offense as well. So at the start of the year, we talk a lot about having, you know, terminology and making sure we're a great offensive communicating team. You know, when we get, you know, into the second half of the year, we actually try and cut that terminology down quite a bit, because especially when we play in a semi-pro men's team with our academy, the teams, we've been scouted by that point. So they'll know what certain, you know, terminology means and what actions are coming. So we try and come away from that in the second half of the year and kind of, you know, play a lot more read and react without having to call these actual offensive terminologies. So, you know, I'm going to talk about 2-man game and 3-man game action. So all of basketball now offensively is either a 2-man game or 3-man game action. How you get to that action, you can do that in various ways, whether it's through motion offense, whether it's through sets. But ultimately, nearly all offense is either a 2-man game action or a 3-man game action. And that's the same for us in flow and in spread. For us, there's 2 different formations that we can be in to be in a 2-man game. And this is the terminology that we use. 2-man game here is 2 high. So you can see in this first diagram right here, bear with me, I'm just trying to do something. Bear with me. So it's, the first diagram, sorry, there is 2 high. So you have 5 here with the ball and 1 here on the wing. He could be in the corner as well. So that's a 2 high action with both players high. And then the next one is 1 high, 1 low. So very simply, you have 1 guard with the ball high, and then the post player is low on the block. Trying to use the mouse here, bear with me. So I'm just trying to get that to work. My computer seems to be frozen. Bear with me, sorry guys. Right, I'm back to it. Sorry, apologies for that. So that's the formations we can be in 2-man game, and then 3-man game. These are the 3 ways that we can be in that. So you have 3 high, which is, you can see 3 guys are high. So 4-man with the ball, 2 on the 45 and 3 in the corner. Then the next one is what we call deep triangle, where 1 has the ball almost in the slot, 5 is low on the block, and 3 is in the corner. And then the last one is what we call shallow triangle. We have 1 high in the slot, 5 on the elbow or pinch post, and then 3 is there in the corner as well. So they're the 3 formations that we are in for 3-man game actions. So I'm going to go through 2-man game actions first. Some of these will be fairly basic, so I'll try and kind of get through them fairly quickly. I'll give you some of the teaching points that we use in these actions. And then I'll show you some actions that I like from various teams throughout the world. So first one, really simply, is backdoor. So, reversal through the trail big, and then, there's a 2-man game between them, and, there's overplay from the defense, and simply the guard backdoors. Some keys for us when we teach this one is obviously, timing is really important for us in this action. It's important in everything that we do in our 2-man and 3-man game actions. For us, timing is very, very important, because what happens here is the ball is reversed here to the trail big. We want him to first of all catch and actually see the basket to start off with. He might be open for a shot. We want him to be able to look for his partner, so we'll look high-low as well. And sometimes we've had great trail players in the past that have had opportunities to look to attack out of that space as well. So what we don't want to happen is that 2-man game to actually happen before that trail post actually turns and faces that side of the floor. So for us, timing is very, very important. And when we get players in early, we spend a lot of time working on the timing. So for us, the trigger for that first 2-man game action is actually turning and facing that way. Then the guard knows that's the trigger for them to be in a 2-man game as well. The other thing is change of speed is important for us as well. We like to play really, really fast. We actually chart our players. We actually chart how quickly we get the ball from transitioning from defense to offense. We're trying to get the ball from free throw line to free throw line in 4 seconds. If we do that and we don't get a look early in the offense, the game almost slows down here a little bit, and we want to play with a little bit of a change of speed. So, here on the reversal, that's where that change of speed might happen. He might catch the ball, he might look high-low, he might shot fake. Then when he turns and faces the 2-man game, that's when the game speeds up again. So you'll just see here in the video, simple 2-man game, we have backdoor, and then we get a wide open layup there at the end of it. Next one is 2-man game. And this one is just simple pass and chase. So a really simple one, 2-man game, pick and roll. So for us, our terminology is pass and chase. And, it can be handoff as well. So it's exactly the same. Pass and chase can be dribble handoff, or it can be pass and ball screen. And some simple teaching points for us is we want to try and reject that screen as much as we can. especially if it's early in the offense. We find that if we can try and reject it, the weak side is often, preoccupied. Maybe they're not getting to, help line, they're not engaged on what's happening on the ball. So we try and reject that first screen as much as possible, and see if we can get good action out of that. And it's also important for us on that weak side triangle, what we're doing on that weak side triangle. It's something that we spend quite a bit of time on, is understanding that if we're in a two-man game, understanding what kind of triangle we want to be on that weak side, whether it means we're in three high, or if we want to be in that deep triangle, which is what that diagram is on the right-hand side, or do we want to be in shallow triangle? And a lot of that will depend on how the defense is playing the pick and roll. So for us, prime example, if they're hard hedging, we might want to be in three high. So then we can, use, a quick pass to get out of the hedge. I've heard the terminology, the messy pass, where you want to try and get rid of the ball quickly. And then that guy looks to see if he can hit the guy rolling. So, we want our guys to think about, not just get to spots and just think, well, this is a spot I can be in. We want them to actually think about, why are we in this triangle, and why do we need to, be thinking about that? So here's a couple of clips of just two-man game pick and roll, really basic. So pass and chase ball screen. I just want to, just a quick mention to the team that I've used a lot in this talk is Kilsyth Cobras. They're a team in NBL 1 in Australia. If you like flow motion, spread motion, I really implore you to go and watch their games. All of their games are on YouTube. They play beautiful offense, like really great offense. I've learned a ton from them, stolen a ton from them as well. And I've done lots of breakdowns of their actions on Twitter as well. So if you are a big motion fan, I really implore you to go and watch their games. So here, just a couple of, is just some video of that. So you can see here, two-man game. And you can see here, rejecting. You can see here on the weak side, defense isn't engaged. And the point guard here gets a wide open layup. Here we go, two-man game again. Okay, and this is important. We spoke about, the weak side triangle, understanding what they should be in. And the spacing here is really good on here on the weak side. Gives an opportunity here for the point guards, big space here to be able to attack. Makes it hard here for the defense also to be able to shrink the floor and get here to the nail. Also makes it hard here for the defense to be able to next this one if they wanted to next it. So last clip here, this is the Australian Centre of Excellence. They run a lot of flow motion principles as well. They just go into a two-man game here, they switch. And here you can just see an example of them punishing the switch with the post player just diving into the block there. So that's the next one was pass and chase. So the next one, which I don't actually have a clip of, but something that we run at the academy quite a bit. We call this pass and dive. So if you can see here on the fast draw clip, the first diagram here, 4 has the ball and he reverses the ball to 2. And instead of him chase ball screening or doing any other action, we just get him to dive into the low block. And the reason that we'll do this a lot of the time is we feel like we have a mismatch in the post where we want to actually try and exploit that matchup. We teach this, whereas they don't usually just try and dive straight in. They're often pass the 2, take a couple of steps towards, almost masking that they're going to ball screen, and then they just slip straight into the block and see if we can get them a touch. We do this for switches as well. So if a team switches early in the offense, we don't break the offense. We actually continue to play flow and spread. But what we want our guys to understand is that if they're still being guarded by a guard when the ball is, reversed back to them, we don't want them to then ball screen again, because if they do, the team will just switch back. So we want them to recognize that and look to pass and dive. If we can't enter the ball here to 4 with 2, a lot of times teams will try and front that. So we'll lift 5, which is flow motion principles a lot of the time anyway. And then we look to go high-low, which you'll see in that second diagram with 5 and 4. Next one, which we use a lot, this is probably one of our favorite two-man game actions, which is what we call push or push handoff. So it's a step-up ball screen. We run this a lot out of transition, the majority of the time, but we do run this as a two-man game when we get into the secondary break. So it's a step-up ball screen towards the baseline. So some teaching points that we speak to our guys about a lot in this is, You know, we want our guards to be in the pro lane. We don't want them too close to the sideline. The reason for that is if teams are being really aggressive ball screen coverage wise, and we're kind of hugging the sideline, it's very hard for our guys to be able to turn the corner. The defense almost uses that sideline as an extra defender. So we want that, you know, the guards to be able to use that pro lane, the spacing that you can see in the diagram there on the right. We teach our post players to try and set that screen flat, so with their butt towards the baseline, which makes it harder for the defense to be able to, you know, call out a coverage because they don't actually know which way the point guard or the guard is going to go. And then when we get in more into the teaching of this, we actually ask our bigs to actually flip the screen as well. So, you know, at the last minute, you know, they sprint into that screen, and last minute they can kind of flip that screen, which makes it hard for the defense as well to be able to get into the coverage that they want to. Push handoff is something slightly different. So push handoff is actually the post player lifting into the 45, actually entering the ball to him and then coming off for a handoff, which I'll show you some clips of. So first couple of clips here, you know, here is our point guard. Our point guard was really good this year, so we wanted to get him going downhill as much as possible, especially in transition. And we have really good spacing here on the weak side, and we hit our a corner here for a corner three. This is the action that Australia ran at the World Championships with the under-19s. You can see here, ball is reversed, and instead of coming into a push screen here, they've entered the ball here to the push player, the guy who is lifted, and then these two go into a two-man game in the handoff. So you'll see here, Canada get a little bit mixed up, and it leads to an open three. Same action right here, and this is a good clip because they actually flow into flow motion here. They're denied here for a couple of handoffs, ball's reversed, and then they get into a two-man game, chase ball screen. Point guard does a really good job getting into the paint there and getting fouled. So they're two actions that we really like out of two-man game. Push is one we've used a lot over the last couple of years, and push handoff is something that we're going to look to explore a little bit more this coming season. Getting into some other actions here as well is, you know, when we play, a lot of teams will try and deny our reversals. So they'll try and deny two-man game actions when we try and go chase ball screen. So we backdoor a lot. So if teams are denying us, we look to backdoor a lot. But what we have to happen is if the backdoor isn't there and we're not being able to pass it, is what action do we then get into if we can't make that pass to the backdoor? And I have a couple of examples of that. So first example here is Barcelona are running a two-man game here, as you're about to see. It's Ante Tomic and Corey Higgins here is in the corner. And Higgins was in this game, they were trying to deny him the ball quite a bit. So Barcelona ran this to see if they could get him an easy backdoor. They actually couldn't get him the backdoor. But what actually happens, if you see, if I can just let this run for a little bit, is after he's backdoored, the defender almost switches off for a split second. You'll see he almost stumbles. He comes back immediately for a handoff here with Tomic, and then they play two-man game out of this. So this is just an option where you can almost, the backdoor happens, and then you can just flow straight back into a handoff here. This angle as well is quite hard for defenders to be able to, you know, lock and trail, to be able to be able to get a coverage here as well, especially the big as well might not see that the guard is coming back, so it might be hard for him to call the coverage as well. And as you see, he stumbles a little bit here. They try to ice it. They can't get into the ice, and then Higgins does a really good job of getting into the paint and then finishing there at the end of it. Another one, which this is the one that we've actually run at the academy for the last couple of years. This is a backdoor, we call this backdoor denial, and we call this deny. So what happens here, exactly the same as what happened in the last clip, the Barcelona one, where there's been a backdoor, but they haven't been able to enter it. And what we do is we look to pitch the ball back either to the other post player that is lifted, or a guard that is lifted on the weak side, depending on what kind of triangle we are on that weak side. And then immediately after that backdoor has happened, the guy that was coming for the handoff with the guard, he pin downs the guy that's in. So, you know, this is hard for that defender, because you can imagine he has gone from defending the back door, and then immediately after that, you know, he's being nailed with a pin down screen. So a couple of examples of that. You see the back door happens, and you can actually see 9 here has his head turned. He doesn't even know the screen is happening. Six set's a really good screen. If you actually don't have shot out of this, what we've looked to do as well, we've looked to enter the ball here to the post. As you can see, he's wide open as well. But they do a really good job here. I think this is Melbourne. Do a really good job of, shot fake, and he ends up getting a wide open three. So that's the one that we've used on backdoor denials quite a bit over the last couple of years. It's an action we've got really good looks out of. Another one that you can look to use is out of two-man game action is fake handoff. So, we're big believers, with all of our post players, we want them to be able to handle the ball on the perimeter, especially with the trends in the game these days. We want, our big guys to be able to handle the ball, to be able to dribble the ball on the perimeter. And this is one that we use with them quite a bit, especially when teams are looking to be really aggressive. So especially when teams are showing and hard hedging. So what we'll look to do is we'll look to dribble handoff with the guard. As soon as that guy who's dribbling towards the guard, as soon as he sees that his guy is ready to jump out, he almost fakes the handoff and then slips the ball through and looks to see if he can go through for a layup. Here, Kilsyth do a really good job of that. Their post player here, 45, he's really skilled on the perimeter. You see he slips. They tried to hedge out. They emergency switch here, but unfortunately, the emergency switch is too late, and he's able to go in there for a wide open layup. Next one, which is one that, I haven't seen this really run as almost like an action that teams go to, consistently, but it's a nice one to come out of a timeout with. I've seen the Australia men's team run this quite a bit with Andre Lemanis. And the reason that I've seen teams do this is a lot of times they're being really aggressive here, trying to deny the pass on a reversal. So what happens, and I've seen teams run this slightly different, but you can either come off and actually set a ball screen, like you are actually setting one for the big to be able to come off, or you just try and bring your player, your defender towards the post player in here, and he almost dribbles straight off your back, and it almost becomes a double screen between these two. In this clip, you'll see they actually set it, they emergency switch it, they do a pretty good job, but you can see here, Kilsyth do a really good job, straight back into flow motion, spread motion principles. They set a push screen, and then Nine's able to get downhill for a layup. Last one out of these two-man game actions. So this is one that we run sometimes if we have a guard that we think is a really good 1v1 player, and we don't necessarily want to bring a ball screen towards them. We just want to give them space to be able to play. We call this one brush. I don't actually have a clip of this one, but if you can imagine 4 reverses the ball here to 2, and instead of him setting a ball screen or setting a screen away, etc., he just sprint cuts out towards the corner, and he sprint cuts through the elbow. And then what 2 is looking to do is he's almost looking to dribble off 4's back, and trying to almost create a little bit of miscommunication in the defense. And then he looks to see if he can, attack a triple gap. There's a lot of space for 2 to be able to attack. And then you kind of get into dribble drive principles off that action. So it's something that we've run. We haven't really necessarily run it as an actual action, but we've run it a couple of times out of timeouts, looking to get, some of our best backcourt players going downhill. Sorry, this is the last one out of the two-man game. So another one that you can actually do, we run this out of three-man game. We've never actually run it out of a 2, but we are looking that potentially we might run this as an action out of two-man game as well, as to shallow cut. So here, 4 dribbles towards 2, and 2 shallow cuts back through the elbow, back towards the top. 4 looks to reverse it back towards 2, and then 2 plays middle third ball screen here with 5. He's playing towards the 2 guard side. And then it's single tag there with X4. So that's an action that we might look to use a little bit next year. We run shallow already quite a bit in our 3-man game action. So it's something that we might look to do with our 2-man game action as well. Going to get into 3-man game actions now. First one, very simply, is the back door. So what we're looking to do here is, if there's an overplay trying to backdoor, what we want our players to do is to really think about why they're going either to same side corner or they're exiting opposite. And a lot of times it's to do with, the player that has the ball. If it's a pick and pop guy, we want to give them space to be able to pick and pop. So we often try and get that guy who 45 cuts to always go through to the corner. If it's a rim rolling big, then we'll often want them to exit to the same side corner. So it gives the guy setting the screen the option to be able to roll, but we also then have the lift guy who can look to enter the ball to the post as well. So just a couple of clips of that. So obviously, first one, very simply, backdoor for a layup. What we want a lot of times to happen is we want to see if we can, when we backdoor, is to get the corner guy's defender to bite. If we can get him to just take a step towards that guy that is cutting, then 9 times out of 10, we're going to get an advantage. And that's where you get the, I've seen Alex Sarama, who coins the terminology, the dominoes effect, where, the dominoes just start to fall and you've created that advantage. And you'll see here, creates long closeout, and that long closeout then attacked into a wide open layup. Here you can see guys exited all the way opposite to the opposite corner. Now it gives these two guys opportunity to play 2-man game with lots of space. I think Hillside, they actually did this not necessarily because they had a pick and pop post player, but I think they actually wanted to give space to their guard here, who's a really good guard. And they just wanted to give him space to be able to play 2-man game and to be able to create. So first one, 3-man game, is backdoor. Next one is pin down. This is probably probably my favorite, if I'm honest. It's one that we ran quite a bit last year. I think there's a ton of reads out of this. I did a breakdown for it on Twitter. I don't really have the time to go through all the individual reads, but if teams try and switch this, there's lots of counters to be able, when they do switch it. If they chase, there's lots of things you can do. If they top lock it, there's lots of different counters you can have against that as well. So I just really like this action because there's lots of reads and lots of teaching out of it as well. There's obviously the mash concept that comes out of it as well. So you can go almost pin down. If they chase, you can then go into handoff. You can go into wing ball screen, etc. So it's an action that I really like. I'm going to try and let this one run as much as possible because there is quite a lot of clips on here. But if you do want to go through all the different reads, I did do a thing on Twitter which broke down all the different reads when teams, when teams chase. That one's when a team goes under. You can get into 3-man game here where they actually go into a pick and roll. And then you have the lift guy and they ISO the post. Lots of different actions here. You'll see. In the NBL, lots of teams are running this as a 3-man game action, and they run it really, really well. If you are a flow motion fan, I really implore you to watch as much NBL as you can, because a lot of teams run a lot of principles. They run a lot of 2-man game and 3-man game actions. This one's a really good clip. You can see here the dominoes fall. Really unselfish play. They managed to find a wide open 3 at the end of it. And then the last one here, which kind of leads into where we were talking about backdoor denial. It's been denied there, and then they get back into that, that 2-man game denial that we were talking about, which is a good one as well. Here you can see it's about linking the concepts together. Maybe he doesn't step into that step-up ball screen as quick as maybe the coach would like, but they're still linking those plays together where they've gone from, it's been a 3-man game pin down. And then it's ended up being, a 2-man game in pick and roll. They've switched it, and then they've gone into 2-man game push screen as well. So you can see here how all those actions are being linked together. Another one here is a very simple one, is posting up your guard out of a 3-man game action. So the guy that's on the 45, you dive him, and instead of him exiting to the weak side corner or exiting to the same side corner, you just post him up on the block. This is something that we're definitely going to explore next year. We feel like we've got a couple of, strong, solid guards that we think that we can look to post up a lot more next year. So we're going to look to run this as a definite action. And it's a really simple one. You'll see here, ball is reversed. They actually switch this action here. They almost look like they're going to get into a pin down action. They see the switch, they recognize it, and they just post the guard up immediately. Reason that I like this as well, and I like the option of posting up guards, is I think that, I'm guilty of it at practice. We don't spend a ton of time with our guards working on post defense. So I feel like if you do have guards that have the opportunity to be able to post, it often puts the defense in a position that maybe they don't practice that, a great deal. So, it's something that we'll definitely explore next season. Next one is flare action. Definitely one of my favorite three-man game actions. I've seen lots of teams run this, especially at the World Championships. I saw quite a few teams run this action. Spain ran it really well. I think they ran it the best out of all the teams that I saw. If you do like flare actions and you like it out of this three-man game alignment, I'd implore you to try and watch the Boston Celtics, Brad Stevens, when Isaiah Thomas was there. They ran a lot of what they call the delay series. They ran a lot of flare screens where they kind of brought the guy from the corner to flare screen Isaiah Thomas out, and they ran a lot of different actions out of that. This one's really simple. I'm just going to show you one read out of it where, Spain had Victor Claver, or they had Oriola coming out of the corner, and a lot of teams were switching, any actions 1 to 4 for them. So Spain ran this to see if they could screen, and then they just slipped it, and they slipped it straight to the rim, and they got 2 dunks off it on the 2 examples I'll show you here. So he tries to set that flare, and then the defender almost looks to try and switch it, and it's too late, and then Claver gets a wide open dunk. And then on the second one, Oriola does exactly the same thing. He tries to set it, and then he slips and gets a wide open one. These other ones are from the NBL. They're the more traditional kind of reads where the flare screen happens, and it's a catch 3 on a chase. And the second one, they try and chase, but the guy chases and curls it all the way to the rim, and he ends up getting a dunk. So if you see on this one. And then on this one, the defense knows it's coming. And then the offensive player here does a really good job of seeing that he's overplaying it, knowing that the flare is coming, and he just slips and just cuts straight to the rim, gets a wide open layup on that one. Next one out of three-man game action. This is what we call up. This is one of my favorite actions out of three-man game. Really good opportunity for you to be able to get a post isolation or try and get your best perimeter guy a middle third ball screen. So the action, if you look on the diagram here on the right, so in the three-man game action, it's 5, 2, and 3. And when 5 turns towards 2, 2 is shallow cutting in towards the elbow and staying there. 3 is lifting, 5 is reversing it to 3. And then 2 sets an up screen for 5 who ducks into the post. If the ball isn't entered to the post, 2 pops, the ball's reversed to 2, and then 4 sprints into a middle third ball screen. Lots of teams in the NBL have been running this. Really great action. One of my favorites, and you'll see here, they get into it here on the third side. So you'll see here 5 has got into the elbow, ball is reversed, up screen happens, and here they switch that up screen, and they do a really good job here of flashing someone from the weak side, and then they punish this switch with a post touch, with a paint touch and a layup. Here, defense does a better job of defending this up screen, but they just flow here into middle third ball screen. Really good Gortat screen there as well, and you see it ends in a dunk. And then on the last one, this is a good one because this screen, the defender here for the New Zealand Breakers, he actually bites on this screen, and now you can see there's an advantage here for the guard. And this is that domino effect again here. This is the advantage that he's now got, and it's about keeping that advantage. And you'll see here, he does a really good job. 14 sets a great screen, and the dominoes here are still falling. He rolls, and he gets a wide open layup at the end of it. Australia ran this a lot for Patty Mills at the World Championships. It was one of their favorite sets. I just wanted to show you the wrinkle out of this if teams try and deny the ball back to the guy that pops. So you can see here the USA were playing Australia. This was in one of the warm-up games. Up screen happens, and you can see here Kemba Walker does a really good job of trying to deny the ball back to Patty Mills. And Patty Mills was arguably the best player on Australia's team at the World Championships. So the counter for this is what we call blind pig, is the opposite post player here comes into the high post area, and he's the pressure release. And here they've got Andrew Bogut, who's one of the best big man passers in all of world basketball. You'll see here sets a little blind pig pass where he just drops the ball off to Patty Mills. And Patty Mills here goes in for a wide open layup. So that's just the counter if teams do look to deny it. I've seen lots of teams run this action as almost dummy action as well. So they're in up here. You see the up screen. The ball is entered here to the post, but this is all dummy action because here, they're setting a away screen here for a guard, and then there's a dribble hand out here. And this was the action that they were looking to go for. So you can be really inventive with all these actions and have wrinkles out of timeouts and so on. Sorry, already seen that. Next one, so shallow is the next one. So we run this quite a bit. This is one of the ones that we ran quite a bit last year, especially when teams switch the 45 cut. So teams often, if I can run this a little bit, on this 45 cut. So sometimes, on this 45, if we dive this guy and this guy's lifted, teams will switch this. So they'll switch it with the guy that is always already low here. So we wanted our guys to recognize this. And if there was a switch, what we wanted them to do was to shallow cut back through the elbow and come to the top. And that's the trigger. As soon as our guy would shallow and he would call it, he would actually say shallow. 45 would recognize this. He would empty this area. He would dribble to that spot that is now being vacated by the guard. He would then pitch it back to the guard that here is now open. And a lot of times we got this for a wide open shot. And if he isn't open, then the opposite post player can come here into a middle third ball screen and you can play out of this. The other thing that I've seen teams do is any time that their best player is in this 3-man game action and he's the 45 guy, they shallow him every single time because they want to get him into a middle third ball screen. Kilsyth did this a lot with their best perimeter player. I saw them shallow cut him a lot. Because they wanted the ball in his hands a lot, especially in middle third ball screens, which you'll see here. Here you see middle third ball screen, and he does a good job of attacking down here and getting a layup. Here, it's not as crisply run, but it's the same idea. Shallow cut back towards the top, and then they get into a middle third ball screen, and he gets a wide open 3. This one's a good one because I think they actually flow into different actions here. They go middle third ball screen. They don't get an action out of it, but then they continue to play out of it. Here they ISO the post, and here's a great skip pass to the weak side for a wide open 3. So shallow's a really nice one, and it's definitely the one that we will run next year as well. I think this is the last one of the 3-man game actions that I have, is what we call hat action. And this is trying to get to a middle third, almost elbow ball screen straight away. We run this sometimes very early in offense where we'll go 2-man game and then we'll get straight back into hat action. A lot of times we want to get the ball back to our point guard early in the offense to see if we can get him going downhill in this action. It's an action that we really like. It's out of the alignment that I explained at the beginning. So it's shallow. So 3-man game in the shallow triangle. So 3, you see the diagram here on the right. 3 would be receiving the ball and they're in shallow here. So 5 would be on the elbow and 3 in the corner. On that pass to 3, 5 is then stepping up into that ball screen. 5 would be rolling and then 1 would be filling in between. So just a couple of examples of that. You see here, 2-man game, ball was pitched back. This 2-man game was almost dummy action. They're not even looking to run this. They're looking to get the ball back here to the guard to run this, step up ball screen. And he managed to get a floater out of that. Last clip here is, we run this action out of our sets a lot. So we'll run a set and the set, is to get back to this action. So for us, this is an action that we've run for a number of years and we call this horns down. We're flowing into this, this 2-man game action here. We're not really looking for this 2-man game action. We're trying to get back to this 3-man game action here, which is that hat action. If teams start to overplay this and they get lazy on this, defending this, then we will look to see if we can exploit it. But a lot of times we're trying to get to this 3-man game action here. And you'll see we do a pretty good job of the dominoes falling again. and we managed to get the ball to our best three-point shooter for an open shot there. Last thing I wanted to talk about before I do open it up for some questions, if there are any, is a couple of coaches asked me about zone offense, and they were asking, can you run flow motion, spread motion versus zone? And it's something that we do. We've done it for quite a few years. It's something that I think lends itself quite well to zone offense. Some of the concepts slightly change, and I'll just go through them very briefly. And I have some clips of a team actually running it against the zone. But things we want to think about is we want our post to dive into short corners and try and play behind the defense. So if they're in a 2-3 zone, we want our post players to be getting into short corner areas, trying to play behind those 3 guys at the back of the zone. We allow them to screen the top of the zone. We really like it when they screen the top of the zone, especially when they're coming from below. Teams aren't expecting it as much, so coming from low to high into a ball screen. So we like to do that quite a bit. We get our post to X when we are in flow motion against zone, and we want them to lift into space. That's something that's really important, which is a different concept to flow motion when you're playing against man. We want them to lift into space, not necessarily a spot. So that space might be charge circle, that space might be free throw line, that space might be coming all the way into the opposite elbow. So we want them to be able to, recognize where that space is and try and find space in the zone. We also allow them to exit to the 3-point line to be able to create overloads. So we give them a lot of freedom. We also want our post players to work together. So we want them looking to, look high-low. So if they catch the ball on the high post, we want them to look for their partner low. The other pass that we look for them to look for is low to high, which is a pass I think, we always think high to low, but we always want to look low to high. So if the ball goes to short corner, we want them to look for that high post who is often diving towards the rim. With our guards, we give them a lot of freedom, just like we do in flow and spread. We want them to find gaps. So we never want them to play almost 1v1 with a defender in zone. We want them to play between 2 players in the zone. We want them to find those gaps where it's hard for the zone to be able to know whose responsibility they are. We want them to use, simple things that you hear about against zone offense a lot of times, using pass fakes. Punch dribbles are really important, and we still want to play with a 1-second rule. We don't want the ball, to be just sticking and some guy dribbling the ball, for 5-6 seconds at a time. We still want the ball to move quickly. A team that runs excellent zone offense when they run flow motion is Illawarra. This was not from this. This was from a season ago. Rob Beveridge, who coached that team, is a great flow motion coach. And you'll see here just all of the principles kind of in one breakdown here. You'll see, the posts are Xing, you see them, and then you see this is that high-low pass, very simple concepts here. Post player here ducks into short corner. They're trying to screen the top of it. Post Xing again. And here is about, the post finding the space. There is the charge circle. He posts up. He gets a wide open layup. Here we can see, there's that low to high pass that I was talking about. Short corner to high post diving. And then you can see here, logo touch. So he catches it on the logo, and then they have a back door for a wide open layup. And then this last clip, I think, is a really good example of a punch dribble. Oh, sorry, no, this one's lifting into space. Like we were saying, you can come all the way across here, and you can see how the post player came all the way across to that opposite elbow. Here's a really good example. Last one is just of a punch dribble. See how he just punches into space, finds a wide open 3 for his teammate in the corner there. So yeah, that's just some principles that we think about if we do run flow motion against the zone. I think it lends itself really, really well to zone offense as well. And that's kind of it from me. Feel free to, if you've got any questions, feel free to answer. And then my kind of contact details are on there as well. So that's my email address, jamesfear@abbeybasketball.com. And feel free to reach out to me on Twitter as well, which is @CoachFear. But if anyone's got any questions, feel free to shoot. Hopefully I haven't gone over the hour, and I did leave some time.
Yeah, no, you're good. You did a great job, and that was really insightful stuff. And Thank you so much. And yeah, if there are any more questions, we do have a couple coming in, but you guys can ask some questions in the bottom there. So first question, Coach, on that hat action that you just showed, do you guys work on hitting the post if the guard in the slot is denied?
Yeah, so it's the same. So there was a clip where I showed in the up action where if, the guy is denied, you have that blind pig action. It's exactly the same for us. So if that guy is denied, we actually like it when our guy is denied high, because lots of times we can then enter the ball to the post, and then the post player can, whether it's the blind pig where you throw that little bounce pass where they're not looking, or what we usually teach our guys is actually to actually turn and hand the ball off to the guard, because he's being overplayed, and a lot of times you get that handoff, and we get good action out of that.
Definitely. Another one says, what alignment do you like on the three-man side if you know that teams like to trap?
If teams like to trap, I'm guessing you're talking in terms of ball screen actions. For me, it would be, it depends. I watched a great clinic. It was by Zico Coronel and Ross McCain's, and it's prevent or punish. So it depends whether you're, what are you trying to do? You're trying to prevent from actually having, the team hedge against you. And if that's the case, I would probably say deep triangle, because, in that action, you have a post player on the block, guard in the slot and guard in the corner. So, no ball screens really happening really when we run that kind of triangle. But if if you're talking about just three-man game action, and you're good against it, then I would probably say three high, because then, the guy who's on the 45, he can exit to the opposite side, and then you can play two-man game where you have the option for the post player to short roll, or he can pop to the corner, or you can have the messy pass where you can, enter the pass really quickly to the opposite side, and he can look for the roller, etc. So that's probably what I would do.
A couple more questions coming in. What three-man side formation do you use versus zone and versus pack line man?
So against pack line man, we run a lot of shadow triangle. So we run a lot of like hat action. We still, we'll still run, if I'm honest with you, most teams that we play against run pack line anyway. So we will run all three of them. It will depend on the action that we're running a lot of the time. So, we won't stipulify that we have to be in one three-man game action necessarily, or alignment. But, against teams that are in pack line, we run a lot of pin down action. That's something that we quite like. Pin down action we seem to get good looks out of. So yeah, and what was the other one? Sorry, it was pack line, and what was the other one? Against zone, right? Correct. Against zone, usually we would be in three high, because we want, we want our two guards to be on the perimeter, and we want our post player to either be high or to be in the high post. So usually it would be three high.
Gotcha. And then another coach wants to see if there's any way to see diagrams of the flow zone offense. Anyway. Yeah. Feel free to email me. I have it all diagrammed. So if you email me, I'll send you the playbook. And what ball protections do you have when a ball handler is in trouble or something is taken away? It's a good question. We try to, for us, if something is taken away, and that happens all the time. So, when you play against good teams, you're not going to get stuff on the first action. That's just the way it is. Teams are good enough and they've schemed well enough against you to know that, you're not going to get something on that first action. So for us, it's linking those actions together. So it's about understanding that we might not get something off that first action. Right, let's get into the second action. Let's get into a three-man game. Right, that's a pin down action. Right, maybe we don't get anything out of that. The ball gets reversed again. Now we're into a push action. And, good teams will take away 2 or 3 actions. But when you're getting into the, 4th and 5th actions, as long as our guys are making good decisions,
you know, we find that we'll get a good shot a lot of times the more actions that we run.
Gotcha. Well, Coach Veer, thank you so much once again. That was great stuff. We really appreciate having you on today.
That's all right. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.